Being an individual or being a creative mind in any way, choosing your style and exercising your right to really let that out isn't always going to make you rich, but there's a good chance that it's going to make you happy. Richard Fordham is a good example of somebody that isn't listening to what anybody has to say. He's out there to make music because it's inside him, and I think that's cool. I think that's something that everybody should really respect and encourage in everybody. You've got friends that you know that are just like that, and who knows what they sound like. Maybe they just haven't even found the right instrument yet, but everybody has a voice. That's something that we always say, and we want to hear it. So, Richard, again, I thank you for your time, and I look forward to what you have to say to us here on the second half of SBS Live this week. So we're going to tie it all together this time with a little bit of history from Richard. We're going to find out basically, what's influenced him over time and how that's going to basically provide the direction for his band, This Thing, for the future. And I think there's all kinds of ways that could go. And I think Richard does too. So it'll be interesting to see what else he's got to say to us all here in the second part, and figure out what the mechanics are behind this thing that are going to keep them driving over the years. So once again, let's get it started here on SBS Live this week with This Thing. Tell me about, in terms of what, because you've listed some pretty interesting influence in your music in terms of people like Syd Barrett and whatnot. Mm-hmm. They've lived some pretty interesting lives. Tell me about maybe something about your own life that you bring into your music. What's maybe a value that you have that's represented in what you do?
Okay, I understand your question. It's the how to answer part I don't know.
Fair enough. That is an honest answer.
I don't know, because a lot of my music isn't very autobiographical. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm writing more about things I've noticed, either in terms of people I know or just larger events.
Right.
I'd say probably it does, I think any music reflects the character of the person that writes it.
Sure.
And, I think there is some degree to which my music does kind of sound like the kind of person I am.
Right.
In the sense that it's fairly ordered, but there's a lot of extra noise going on.
Okay. How do you mean extra noise? Like, are we talking like extraneous instruments, or are we talking like...
Could be extraneous instruments, odd harmonies that seem to come out of nowhere, or bits of music that come out of nowhere.
Okay.
And have sort of an almost chaotic thing to them, but
right.
There is a reason for them being there.
Certainly, yeah.
And if only because I've had a lot of friends who, in some ways, like some of my friends think of me as a really rigidly ordered person.
Okay.
And others tend to think of me as completely anarchical, and
right.
I think it's more of a two.
Okay, so you're finding the balance in between the two.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I think my music kind of sounds like that because it can switch rather rapidly, but there's a reason for the switch.
Right. Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, most people, at least that I know of, are making music that they like to listen to themselves. So I would assume that kind of thing is something that appeals to you. You like those different elements coming in and out of your songs. These different noise elements, as you're saying.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, I love that kind of stuff. Whenever something gets a little bit different or weird, I use a song all the time as an example from a band called Mogwai. They're an instrumental. They're classified as space rock. But they have a beautiful song called Golden Porsche, which is just an instrumental guitar track. And they've got the loudest and most horrific sound spike in the middle of this beautiful melody. I'm dying to ever get an interview with the guys just to ask them that one question that, one day, what the heck is going on with that one spot? But I know it's on purpose, because there are people out there that they do like to hear things just a little bit differently than other people do. And, in terms of something like that, that was probably the perfect moment in that song for them. Whereas for another person, they might listen to it and they might have no idea why it's there. What do you think that, like, for a person to listen to the music of this thing the first time, what do you see their perception as? How are they hearing it?
It's hard to know, because I've seen different reactions.
Okay.
I've seen some people that almost have a look of horror on their face upon hearing it. And then I've seen sort of the opposite, almost like they were almost excited by it in a way.
Right.
And, I just think it has so much to do with individual tastes that I could never predict who's going to be a fan of our music. I'm quite often surprised at the people that were. But, I suppose if I were to go through their CD collection, I'd probably see things that were maybe similar to us.
Right.
Or have the same influence as us, whereas if I went to the people who, looked at us in abject horror,
right,
I'd probably find their collection is full of folk.
Right.
Sure. It's like we're like the anti-folk to them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Something different for sure. So in terms of where you're going to go with it now and what's upcoming for this thing, what do you see in terms of how is a person going to get more of your music in the next little while? What do we have coming in the pipeline? What can a fan expect?
Okay. Well,
we don't want you to disappear forever. We need to bring you back. How are you coming back?
At some point, I'm going to have to get my shit together to make a new album.
Okay.
Because I do have a lot of songs that never got recorded or have only gotten demo sort of thing.
Right.
That's at this point contingent on getting a band. I have to decide whether I want to try a band or just go the route of recording everything myself, because I can play most of the instruments involved and then bring in specialists for things I don't know.
Right.
So, it's just basically, will I put a band first and then try to play live, or do the album and then try to find a band for it? That's the part I'm
I see. Right.
debating right now.
Right.
And but I will, at the very least, keep up recording and writing, and I do have some songs posted on MySpace for anybody who at least wanted to hear rough ideas of what we're up to.
Okay. And what is it that's still driving you to do this? Like, what is it? You've got a lot of songs that are compiling that you're not putting down yet. What is it that makes you want to? Is it born out of some need to express something or to entertain? What is it that makes you make the music of this thing?
Well, the most fun part for me is the actual writing of the music. But in order to keep writing music, it eventually has to get played. It's kind of useless to write music if nobody hears it.
Right.
So everything else is kind of like a means to an end. But the thing I have fun with is actually putting the ideas together and trying to see if they'll work.
Okay. So whether or not, at the end of the day, it gains fans, it loses fans, these aren't weighing into your decisions when you're making the music itself. The music is organic and kind of separate from that, and you're just letting it be how it is?
Well, I guess I just don't let myself worry about it too much. I mean, it's like when we're in high school, we can have that worry about, well, am I going to appeal to every other kid in the high school, or am I just going to be me?
Yeah.
And ultimately find that the healthiest kids were the ones who just decided to be themselves, and the ones who tried to shape themselves to be like everything else ultimately came out feeling very soulless in themselves and didn't really get accepted. They more got humored by others. So I apply the same logic to my music. If I just do the music I do, well, I've met a few people that like it. On a planet of 7 billion people, I could meet a few more.
Yeah.
And
is that enough?
Well, it isn't about quantity for me, but if I were to go the other route and try to make my music sound like everybody else, that doesn't really do a lot, ultimately. You know, the history of rock and roll is full of a whole bunch of also-ran bands that tried to sound like the big thing of their day, but who knows about them now?
Right, okay, I see.
And, you know, so you don't want to do that. And I've even met A&R guys from record companies who basically will tell you to your face, no, sound like you.
Right. Yeah.
You
know, well, the good ones are, right? You know, like the ones that you want to stay away from are the ones that are telling you to become the cookie cutter cut out of everything else that's going on. Well, good for you for staying organic like that, because I think that's tough. I don't know, maybe that's my misperception, but do you think that there's a lot of that kind of hollowness in a lot of the music that is out there today, or is that, do you just have to dig for it in different places?
I think it's hard to say, because I think we have to separate what is stuff that's derived from the actual musicians and what is stuff that's derived from the hype about them. You know, a good example is, like, say, when I was a teenager, when punk rock was first becoming a big thing, the early punk rock bands were always publicly lambasting the old guard.
Right.
You know, like bands like the Sex Pistols and the Clash, or the local level DOA, saw the Led Zeppelins and the T-Rexes as just being decadent old dinosaurs that should have died off long ago. But then over the years, and a lot of it I think was just based on the image that they got, but then once they'd actually get to a point maybe where they played on the same bill as some of these older bands, they get to meet the guys, and, you know, when they see them on stage, they see maybe how much conviction they actually do have in what they do, regardless of the style. Then they, you know, got past it. You know.
Got that band respect eventually, at least, right?
And I think that's how the, you know, eventually punk rock and old guard rock came to accept each other to a large degree. Because you just have that cross-fertilization of just seeing that, okay, you know, I've seen past the hype, you're really just a guy who believes in his music. It just happens to be different sounding than mine.
Right. What you do in this thing is a fairly unique sound, so is it tough to, do you find it's tough to be that kind of trailblazer in that sense, that you are kind of off on your own, there's not a lot of maybe comparisons to right now? Are you stuck off on your own, or is there enough of what you do that can appeal to a broad spectrum and bring people in?
That I don't know, or I don't know if there's people doing the sort of stuff I do now. But it's not without musical and historical precedent.
Right.
You know, there's, when people hear our stuff, they say, oh, that reminds me of such and such a band.
Certainly,
and again, it's just, those are a lot of questions I don't even generally trouble myself with.
Right.
I've just, even in terms of the feedback I got, even if, like, for the 5 years that we had the band going in Nelson, we might not have gotten very popular, but we had a lot of everybody's respect for just having the balls to do what we did.
Sure, absolutely, and especially, like, you know, if you do feel isolated, or you feel like your sound is different, and it would have been in the interior for sure, then and it does. It takes an extra set of cojones to get up there, right?
Yeah, and it was just kind of funny because, you know, it wasn't just, you're not just playing songs when you're this thing. You're wearing these weird costumes that I've designed. And,
oh, okay.
you know, we had, like,
I saw.
You might have seen that video I sent you.
Yeah, there was a clip on one.
And we had this sort of concept of kind of like parodying secret societies and stuff. So we had these like ceremonial gowns and headdresses and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely the one.
You know, so when you're signing up to play in this band, that it's not just going to be standing around in jeans and t-shirt. You're going to have to. There might be some costume work. There might be a little bit of acting involved.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're recruiting, how do you explain that to people? What's your pitch for to come and join this thing? How does that work?
That I have to work out.
Okay.
Because when I was in Nelson, the pitch was just very much at first with the musicians, like these are the songs, and I had some recordings of the songs so they can hear them.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of attracting people on the basis of the music, and a lot of the other stuff didn't develop until after a few gigs. Our first few gigs we were pretty well just a jeans and t-shirt band playing weird music.
Right.
But then, as our reputation in town, at least amongst the musicians, grew, well, the musicians already knew who we were because they came to see us, so it was just at some point, if I saw somebody in town that I thought, okay, I'm going to need a replacement of a certain instrument, and that guy, I've seen him play, and he's been in a couple of bands already, and I've heard good things about him in other bands in terms of work ethic and all that.
Yeah.
So then I just approached them. Okay. And then, 4 out of 5 times they'd say yes.
Right.
And I had a couple of people who asked to join the band, and when an opening came up, I slipped them in. But
how do they generally accept because some musicians are certainly okay with the kind of theatrical aspect of doing what it sounds like you go for, and then of course some wouldn't be. Do you run across both, or are they generally accepting to the kind of theater idea as well?
Well, it's not sort of the main thing they sign up for.
Right.
But part of it too is I try to think it through in a way that, I'm not setting people up to look foolish.
Right.
There's a reason behind it, but at the same time, I'm going to try to make it as practical as possible. Like, I don't have the budget to send somebody to acting school.
Right.
But, so I'd have to trim it down to making it something that's doable that I can give you a few minutes of pointers on.
Yeah.
And then you can do it, and it's not going to interfere with the music. So a lot of it's just how you're fitting it in.
Right.
And if it's just a little bit of presentation added at a time, as opposed to you just walking into this whole pre-planned thing, it kind of had a more organic growth to it than that, so it probably wasn't as much of a big deal for the people.
Right.
And some of them in the band were a bit quirky, and
I would bet some people would go right for it. I mean, I would think some people would absolutely be dying to have that element in a band, and a lot of people don't. I think that a band with that kind of attitude is maybe a little more rare nowadays than perhaps the other way. Like to have just kind of a standard 4-piece, boring, nothing really going on visually, to stand there is a lot more common to me these days than to see something a little bit different and a little bit entertaining. It's always awesome to see that, because it's, like I said, I find it's a little bit more rare, and I think it's a lot more important, especially musically. I think that you got to have people pushing the boundaries and doing different things, otherwise we are all just going to sound the same eventually. I don't want that.
Well, it's funny too, because I've been in touch over the 5 years we existed. We had about 30 or so different people in the band over the years. And
yeah, the list of names you gave us. I was like, okay, I can't even find my email here.
I can't even find them, some of them.
Right.
But of people that I have been in touch with, that's, the feedback I get from them is like, that's one of the most fun bands I ever played in.
Right. Now, in terms of how far spread apart are you all now? Like you and the entire 20? Some of them you said you can't find.
Well, some of us are still in Nelson.
Right.
I think a lot of them just are settled in that area. Some have expatriated to Vancouver. Some went to other places. Like we had a saxophone player who also did engineering, and I think she left to go to Boston for Berklee College of Music for a few years, and now she's in North Van. But and they're just kind of scattered all over. I think there's a few that are even in other countries. Some aren't maybe performing anymore, but now they're teaching music.
Right.
Because, we're all in our 30s and 40s and stuff.
Yeah. Is there anybody that, as you go on and you're coming up to your newer recordings, is there anybody that you would consider, I need to contact this person, bring them back, or are you going to be looking for mostly newer players, do you think?
Well, I think if only for locale, like I'll probably focus on newer players because I'm based in Vancouver.
Right.
If anyone wanted to come back, I don't think there'd be a reason. Like, nobody ever got fired.
Right.
There was, none of them are on my shit list or anything like that. So, if a band was happening and I happened to need that spot, they could probably just walk in.
Okay. I'm pretty sure they heard that.
Object.
You can walk right back in.
Yeah.
You're all good.
But, it's been so many years and everyone's gone on to so many other things, or also, too, for some of the people, they had fun in the band, but it really wasn't the kind of music they want to be doing.
Right. Fair enough.
And it's better for them if they just go off and do the thing they really like.
Right. And do you know, like, in terms of what they've gone off to do, has there been any wild success stories that way, or are they all still trying to find their way as well, as far as you know, or did most of them go back to regular life?
It's a mixture of those.
Right.
Yeah. Like, most of the people in this thing, I think, are still creatively active, but it might be on, maybe not as much of the scale as they'd like it to be.
Right.
Like, I don't think any of us got famous yet.
Right.
I would have noticed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, to me, I mean, it sounds like that creativity and that passion is still quite inside you. So, I guess the logical question, being on Richard's birthday here, is 48 over the hill? Do you still have a lot to offer in terms of what you can put out there?
Well, I don't know if I have a lot to offer, but I know I have a willingness to offer it.
Okay, we'll take it. We'll take it.
You people have to judge whether I have a lot to offer or whether it was just, a limp effort at best.
Right.
But
you're far from done, though, at this point.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I find it's interesting, and because we're at a point in history where we didn't think we'd ever get here, but, when I saw the Rolling Stones in 2007 or around there, the guy's like 60 and he's still going.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he even predicted that would be happening.
I don't even think he knows he's 60 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I think if you had asked them when they were 30, are you going to be doing this in 30 years?
Right.
So, heck, they probably would have figured, no, I'll probably be, I don't know, retired, a stockbroker or something.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them are still doing it, and if anything, because I think in their middle years, a lot of the older rockers realized they had to make some lifestyle changes if they wanted to not die like their friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
So, if anything, people like Keith Richards and that are probably in better shape now than they were in their 20s.
Very true. Yeah. Do you think that is there any kind of a cap that way? Can you make music into your 90s and still, I guess it's based more on what's important to you as an artist rather than, again, what your audience might be expecting of you?
Yeah, and I guess also it depends on the form of music. I mean, rock and roll typically has been more of a young person's kind of music. And, a lot of rockers, they might stay in music, but they just do very different things. Like Robert Plant music with, I think Alison Krauss is her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's very much like Led Zeppelin at all.
No, yeah.
And
absolutely right.
I think he was asked at one point recently if he was, going to go along with another Zepp reunion, and he's like, no, that's young man's music. I mean, I'm at the age where I need help across the street. I can't be doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's very true of rock and roll. It does get to a point where it does look a little awkward, that's for sure.
Yeah, or, you just realize, unless you weren't a very physically active rocker.
Right.
Yeah,
then you could probably get away with it.
Yeah, good call.
Like, I could probably still play when I'm 90 because I don't depend a lot on gyrations.
Right, yeah.
I could be in a wheelchair and do what I do.
That's right, you don't need the pelvic thrust to move anymore, you're all good, yeah.
Alright, so here with another performance exclusive here at SBS, we've got Richard Fordham with my favorite guitar of the moment, doing another song for you all, so here you are.
Every time they open their mouths, you can catch the steam of compromising, justifying, as they gouge out their eyes, yeah. And all the lies they hide behind, just to sell off their time. Hurting in all the games they play. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. They lie and they cheat, demand your respect for the price of your will. They will give you protection from the worst that they are and all the things it creates. They just want to eat you. They just want to eat you. They just want to.
How'd you feel about that? Once again, that is Richard Fordham from This Thing. And thank you very much, Richard. Man, I can't tell you. Hello Kitty and all, you just come in and you do your own thing. So I really appreciate you stopping by. great interview, great talk with you, and again, thank you very much for the performance. Always appreciated. We're a music show. Something that we've seemed to notice since the beginning of this year is a real shift towards who's contacting us and who's reaching out to SBS. And we're finding a lot of creative minds and a lot of unique talent that's out here, both locally and around the globe as well. So there's a lot of new things coming and a lot of like minds that seem to be linking together. And we're very excited to be able to provide that kind of space and freedom for the artists to be able to do that through us. It's basically been fantastic getting to know a bunch of people, and we're looking forward to getting to know a bunch more. So we've got some fantastic acts coming up for you in the future. I've mentioned Perception the author is going to be here via video chat from the UK. So excited for this guy. I talk to him regularly over the internet, and this guy is pumped. This guy is ready to do this thing, so very excited to see what he comes up with. In addition to that, we've also got Better Than Grey from Bulgaria. They're going to join us via video chat because that's a long walk. So we're very excited to have those guys as well. But first, let's talk about next week. Let's talk about Cinged. Let's talk about Corey. Let's talk about Teresa. Next week, we've got two really creative minds, two very respected individuals here at SBS. This is a band that we found a long time ago, back when this whole show was first starting out, and we've been in contact with them ever since, trying to set something up that would work. And what we found was that video interview once again. So we're extremely ecstatic to be able to present these guys to you because we know that they've put in the work. If you've been checking out our pages, facebook.com/sleepingbagstudios, you'll see pictures, all kinds of promos coming up for the show with Cinged, really kind of showing what they've done behind the scenes in terms of work to be able to present themselves and that link between art and music to the world. So ecstatic is complete understatement, and my tone of voice doesn't really ever raise past chilled out, so that's just kind of how that goes. So I'm sure it's apparent that I could stand here and talk about Cinged for pretty much forever. So I won't do that anymore. Why? Because I can feel them rolling their eyes in the back of their heads from across the screen. So let's move on. Let's show you a clip from the upcoming Cinged interview here on SBS Live this week. First one airing again on Wednesday, January 30th. So check that out. Here it is.
Hi, I'm Teresa and this is Corey. We're from the band Cinged. We're a very alternative band based out of Kelowna, BC.
We are Cinged.
We're a band that's very sensitive to the world around us, and we like to incorporate that into our music. We're moody as fuck, and we really care about the world around us.
Music is a huge part of our lives.
Once again, that is Teresa and Corey from a preview of the upcoming interview with Cinged here on SBS Live this week, this coming Wednesday on January 30th. And again, very happy to have them here to represent that link between the art and the music and the fact that it can still exist out there today. It's an important tie-in to what we do here at SBS. I won't go into it long today, but again, if you've seen the postings on our wall, you know that this is an important band that has something to say. So I definitely recommend coming back for that next week. You'll see that on Wednesday. That's January 30th. And we're absolutely ready to showcase Cinged to you and the world. So be ready for that. Other than that, we're going to keep on doing what we do here. We've got lots of people in the works. We've confirmed Nixie is going to be here with us. For all you locally in Vancouver, you definitely know who we're talking about. So very exciting stuff. Make sure you're checking out the podcast, The Great Canadian Hit List with Jeff Jeffries. That is some unbelievable stuff. So we'll post a link to that at the end of the episode here, and make sure that you hit him up for some support and like his page so that we can bring you other great Canadian acts, indie bands that you're seeing here through SBS, and have another avenue for these artists to go to. And that's what it's all about, whether or not it's networking here locally or reaching out across the world like we've been doing. There's a way for us all to connect to each other through this musical language we all share together. So again, one of those people that shared that musical language with me here today, Richard Fordham. I'd like to thank you again for stopping by SBS and really just kind of chatting it out with me, man. It was a good conversation and a unique experience, as you know. Nobody's brought a Hello Kitty guitar into my studio before, and I think it'll be a long time before I see another one, to be completely honest. So thank you again for just putting a smile on my face by bringing that guitar in alone, and then again, just good to talk to you. So we'll be back next week with Cinged. Want to be here for that. Got to be here for that. Need to be here for that. Alright, we'll see you then.